since its inception.
That's right.
So because of my involvement with the BRAD group, or the Bel Air Regional Advocacy Group, which started when we had the screaming, yelling matches up there at the parking lots of Bel Air when DEC was near close to shutting Bel Air down again. They were in consideration, and then it gets switched over to order. So I've been there walking along and walking the walk and talking the talk and doing all the work, all the groundwork. As far as the community advisory panel goes, it's really just a discussion. And I'm going to tell you, it's just sitting around with Mike Pratt and saying, hey, you know what, some people were complaining about the lodge and that they're sitting around on the stairs and they'd like to get more seating here, so maybe if you could do something there. I mean, other than that, it's, you know, trying to get communication lines open for advertising, to try to get it tied in with lodging bureau businesses and stuff. That's all, trying to keep those lines of communication open. We're not making any administrative decisions at these community advisory panel meetings. These are like a Chamber of Commerce meeting. Hey, it'd be nice if we could have this kind of event here. Okay, maybe we'll consider it. That's what goes on at those meetings. If you want an update on those things, then fine. I mean, I've talked to several people here, just like I brought up about the snow skating. Yeah, this was a community advisory panel thing. It came up at our meeting. Orta is well aware of it. We would like to address it. I'd like to see it go further, so that's why I'm bringing it up again tonight. I mean, I've sent notice to the town board members about this being a possible issue. I'll keep them involved if it's a volatile issue, but it just bothers me because, again, aside from the job as supervisor, Bel Air is near and dear to my heart. I have grown up there, I've done activities there, I've been teaching there, I've raised my kids there, my kids are enjoying it. There is a whole culture that is involved at Bel Air Mountain, and it kind of bothers people that you would just not include them in the conversation and to say that as a legislator, you didn't want it because of the way they felt. Well, Rich Shadle skis up there. I know he's not a fan of the resort, and we have no ill will. I mean, we can sit at the bar together and talk and chat, and there's no problem. Everybody sees eye to eye when we're on stuff.
So I spoke with many people like Rich Shadle who ski regularly. I spoke with people who are ski instructors at Bel Air. I did not seek out people who had been involved in trying to get the ski center to move from the management from DEC to ORTA. I think that was a very bad move. You were involved in it, you're owning that, that's fine. I think there's been a lot of problems with it that were predicted and that have come true. And so I'm looking for people that could help get us off that dime. These resolutions that we submit are published on the county's website, just like resolutions are published for the Shandaken. There was a previous resolution for another legislator who was willing to step forward, who then wasn't able to step forward. So it's actually been up there for months. So what happened is you did not get a call from me about this. And I'm saying I am willing to call you in the future, but I would like to have you calling me about things as well.
John.
I happened to be at that meeting, and I was the only one that had the opportunity to speak. And I talked about transparency. And I'm going to take you to task, Captain. I would like to know why the town of Hardenburg, the town of Denning, the town of Olive have not submitted any comments with regards to this resolution. And in fact, you prefaced the resolution with the fact that you stated that because of your involvement with the resort, that you felt it might be a conflict of interest, so you were passing it off to Legislature Rodriguez. If you can't present it yourself because of a conflict of interest, I find it offensive that you would even proceed with it, because there's still a conflict of interest.
So I said there would be a perceived conflict of interest. There actually is not a conflict.
You have lawsuits pending against the town of Shandaken and Bel Air and the resort specifically. They're tied together. They are tied at the hip.
That is incorrect information.
It's been approved. You filed lawsuits challenging it.
What you're doing now is dominance behavior because you're not letting me finish my statement. It's really just dominating. So I'm happy to provide the information that the question asked. The lawsuit from the Catskill Heritage Alliance and myself is against the two lawsuits, one against the Crossroads Resort and DEC, and the other against Crossroads Resort and the town of Shandaken. The lawsuit against the town of Shandaken, as Supervisor Stanley alluded, has been resolved, and the town is free to issue the permits that it issued, and we did not challenge that beyond an initial appeal. The other lawsuit is still open, but it is not against Bel Air. Neither of those lawsuits were against Bel Air. And the Catskill Heritage Alliance has been a supporter of the Bel Air Mountain Ski Center. It's done that in many different ways, including writing an analysis that suggested that the move to take management from DEC and take it to ORDA would have big transition costs, would have very little benefit, and was a bad move. That has been pushed by Supervisor Stanley, by Legislator Parity, by the Coalition to Save Bel Air, or whatever, Joe Kelly and whatever their name is, and that's fine. You know, that's an opinion. But it has not, in my view, and in the view of the skiers and mountain bikers and music supporters that I talked with, it has not led to the mountain thriving. So my approach was to try something new. And I think the claim that it wasn't done transparently is just false. You know, it doesn't go anywhere when there's been no transparency from the town supervisor in terms of information coming out about what's going on at Bel Air and what's happening with ORDA. How many times?
Kathy, I'm going to stop you
I
there
have to
again.
change it.
One final statement.
Okay.
So I don't think we ever had a report from Legislator Parity to this board in the 6 years that he served as the ORDA representative about what was going on at ORDA and what role the community could have. I wanted somebody, and I still want somebody, who will have that kind of role, who will reach out to all of the region and bring us updates and mobilize us in the way that the community here in Shandaken mobilized to get the gondola. And I would really believe that that was actually the local community and the skiers who mobilized to do that, and not the official ORDA rep. So I apologize for not having done all the things that you would have liked if you were in my role. I'm trying to do that role better, and to the extent that your criticism can help me do that, I'm willing to accept it. I would like that to be a two-way street.
I'll accept your apology, but with the condition that in the future, and I have nothing against Hillary, but I would reserve the right to think that there might be more qualified people for that position. Do you know what the position of the ORDA board is? It is really not to advocate for Bel Air specific. It is to manage and operate all of the Olympic facilities, including Bel Air. So for you to have a person that is, whatever her qualifications are, I believe it's not enough to warrant that position on that board. Having said that, I would ask, because I was there and I got a letter that Pete Disclafani says, as a councilman for the town of Shandaken, which you do have that title, but that means that you're accountable to the people of the town of Shandaken. And I want to know what gives you the right to go out on a limb and make a statement on behalf of the town of Shandaken with no knowledge of the town of Shandaken. The letter says, as a councilman for the town of Shandaken, I wholeheartedly support Hillary Smith as the ORDA representative for our area. It's quote.
As specifically a councilman for the town of Shandaken.
But you did it without anybody's knowledge. I mean, where is the accountability? Where is the transparency? You're accountable to the people of the town of Shandaken. If I had known about it, I would have suggested that, again, advertise for positions. Don't just appoint somebody that's handpicked by, I'm sorry, Kathy, but you seem to handpick this person.
I wasn't
How
appointing
did
somebody.
John Parity?
I'm sorry. Hold
We're
on.
going back. How did John Parity get in? He was assigned because he was a legislator?
He was appointed.
Because
He was appointed by the governor, he was recommended by the county. At the time, when we started, again, county executive's office was, so again, I want to correct that. It wasn't just like a bunch of Bel Air heads getting together and saying, let's go to ORDA. So county executive's office was involved. highly involved with March Gallagher, who was the deputy executive at the time, talking with several people that were involved, including Catskill Watershed, Coalition of Watershed Towns. There was a number of organizations that were there and involved. The DEC was sitting at the table with us while we were discussing, what are the options? What do you do with state land? It is state land. How do you own and operate a mountain? You can't lease it to a private corporation. You can't do this, you can't do that. So that's where ORDA came in. They already operated ski mountains. It was already things, I know Kevin Cahill at an environmental meeting up in Albany at one time had yelled at the DEC because the DEC had it in their head that you could just walk up to the ski mountain in November, flip the switch and start running the ski center. And there was maintenance issues that needed to be addressed under the DEC. We also understood that DEC had some issues with oyster shoals in Long Island and several other environmental concerns that really are the focus of the DEC. So it had to leave the DEC, otherwise it was going to be left in the dust. So moving to ORDA was what we had available to us at the time. The legislation was done, the governor's office approved of it, the county legislature approved of it, the county executive approved of it. Everybody was on board and it moved forward. So then the people that were involved in that conversation were then basically said, well, who are we going to use to get on the ORDA board to put up there? Well, John had carried all this legislation around through being his job as a legislator, had carried it through to Albany, some places, gone through Cahill's office, gone through Senator's office, all this stuff, using his political clout. On the other side, Joe Kelly had been highly recognized because he was working with Maurice Hinchy back in the 80s, and a lot of politicians recognized Joe Kelly on the Delaware County side. So Joe Kelly was put in place on that side, and John Parody was put in place on this side. Joe Kelly was given, out of the two seats, one is guaranteed to be the second vice chair of ORDA. So Joe Kelly was given that second vice chair because of his overarching knowledge of Bel Air and everything that's been going on for decades of Bel Air. So that's where those two seats fell. As far as the cap goes, again, we've had one meeting this year, and that was basically, we talked about the snow skating and trying to get what's going on with mountain biking. Are you guys going to expand mountain biking? Yes, September we're going to open it up for people to start going freelance. Those are the conversations. If you want me to give a report, I'll give a report. But they're pretty, non-essential conversations, and Bel Air gets the word out and puts their advertising out to say that these things are going on. And as far as the appointment goes, it's not necessarily, that's why I'm trying to prove it's not necessarily a legislator that needed to be appointed. But right now what happened is Joe Kelly stepped down in Delaware County, and somebody else is going to be appointed currently, right now. So our point is too that we don't really need two newbies up there to try to learn the ropes on what's going to happen up there. The funding that came through, the capital improvements, I absolutely have to say that Joe Kelly and John Parody made sure that these capital improvements were going through. That gondola was transformative for that mountain. The skier bridge is something that nobody else in the East has like that. I mean, these are things that are going on at Bel Air, which are changing it. And I can tell you as a fact, as a ski instructor, and as somebody who's up there skiing for 30 years, that we saw a big decline. We saw it going down in the DEC's era, that it was dropping. Skier visitors were dropping. And recently, this past year, I think was the best year that ORDA has had. I think they were near 165,000 skier visits. So 165,000 people, whether they be return visitors or not, 165,000 feet walked through, or maybe double that, walked through the doors of Bel Air and came into our town. So that's a credit, and that's where it works. So we just want to keep those communication lines open. I just ask that when it comes, again, when it comes to something like this, just reach out. There was no ulterior motive, there was nothing, it was just like, where is this coming from? Why not just reach out to that community and say, hey, you want a new baseball coach? Well, let me find you a baseball person. I'm not going to get you somebody that plays soccer. That's just...
Can I make a suggestion as well? As a person, I've worked at Bel Air for 14 years. I'm only 28. It's a pretty considerable amount of my life. I grew up there. My parents brought me there as a kid. It's my home more than my own houses. I love that place. If you're that dead set on finding someone to replace our former legislator on this board, go to the community. All of my friends are Bel Air employees. Not a single person knew about this. I didn't know about it until Tuesday when I talked to you. Hillary sounds like a fine person. Try to find somebody who knows this community because it's more important than ever at Bel Air to be a part of that community. As it pertains to transparency of the cap, as it pertains to snow skating or the ski, snowboard, whatever, I'm very close to snow skating. I snow skate. I've been snow skating. The cap has been integral in opening that dialogue with Mike Pratt and the ORDA board. They might not have power, essentially, but they've been essential in having our voices heard. So I don't know if a lack of transparency is actually the right word. Maybe a lack of understanding that people want some sort of presentation at town board meetings. That's fine, we can do that. But Tom White, Rob Stanley, Diane Monroe have all been integral in helping Bel Air in the past weeks alone. And I've never been to Academy, but it's important to understand because a lot of people don't know what that is or what they do.
I think we've gotten a lot of information about ORDA and about the Citizens Advisory Board and about this position shared with each other tonight. One thing that people should know is that until ORDA took over, there were no seats on that board reserved for the Catskills. Now there are 2 seats reserved. One has to be filled by someone residing in Ulster County. One has to be filled by somebody residing in Delaware County. Those are the only requirements. The appointment is not the Ulster County legislators nor this board. It is the governor's appointment. But when the 2 appointments were made, the 2 initial appointments made 6 years ago of John Parity and Joe Kelly, they came with resolutions supporting them from the Ulster County Legislature and the Delaware County Board of Supervisors. And in terms of communications to Ulster County, I believe that Supervisor Stanley sent his comment on Shandaken supervisor letterhead. So in terms of a position being taken by the supervisor and being sent to the Ulster County Legislature, I believe that was done without consulting the board.
And
If I might say something?
Let me just add that letter, and if you read it, is not, it is questioning where this is coming from. Why are we not being included in the conversation? It's me questioning the process.
And did you send it to me?
I sent it to the legislators that are on that committee. That's where I called up and said, where do I send this? They said, you send it to the chair of the committee and you send it to the head of the legislature.
You have a question? Please call me.
Chuck, yes.
I would ask for the same courtesy. But the fact of the matter is, in my statement, my closing statement was not to say anything derogatory towards Hillary, but it was ultimately to table the resolution until they had the opportunity to investigate all their options. That was my statement, okay? The fact of the matter is, and maybe people don't realize this, the order board is made up of some, I'll call them volunteers, because that's what they do. They don't get paid for this position. But it was also made up of people that are ultimately required to sit on that board. One of them being the director of the DEC, one of them being the director of Parks and Recreation, another one being the director of Economic Development. But the fact of the matter is, there are other seats available. If I'm not mistaken, the town of Elba has 3 seats. North Creek, I think, only has 1 seat. But Bel Air is fortunate to have 2 seats. We're outnumbered in the big scheme of things. But the bottom line is, the person that is going to be there and be our representative needs to be a strong advocate for Bel Air. Now, I'm going to tell you, I don't know anything about Hillary, but I asked her, and she does not ski. I don't know what expertise she brings to the table. The fact of the matter is, her resume says that she's a farmer, she's a real estate agent, and she has a background in environmental studies, and she's also a planner. Well, the plan has already been adopted. John Parity, by the way, Joe Kelly sits on, he's the chairman of the audit and committee. Again, these people are professional and experts in the field. Again, I just think that she's outgunned, and certainly I think that it could be a better opportunity for a stronger advocate from our looking into the possibility and ultimately advertising for the position, as opposed to just one person handpicking and putting it forward without the knowledge of the town of Shandaken, which Bel Air Ski Center is part of. Thank you.
I'll also add that with the change, with the resignation of Joe Kelly, also, Joe was, what's guaranteed in the legislation is that one of the members, either the Ulster County or the Delaware member, will also serve as the second vice chair for the order board. Joe Kelly served in that capacity. That recommendation for vice chair comes from the town boards of Middletown and the town of Shandaken to the governor's office. So we need to be aware of who these people are so we can make the proper recommendation as to who will serve as that second chair now. And that's going to be coming up shortly, probably within the next month or two. We'll probably have to make a decision on this. So with that, I'll continue to other open public comment. Rick left. That's all we got to do? Okay. That's all. I can do that. Note to self. With that, I'd like to adjourn the meeting in memory of Charles Berrien Sr., Burdett Booth, Donald Butch Myers, Hillary Swan, Kirk Johansson, Ralph Rosenkrantz, and Thomas Sisko. A motion to adjourn?
Make that motion.
Favor?
I want to find out, we're going to nominate
If the museum doesn't want it, I think it's nice to look at that stuff.
But either way, I would help.
So I just
Yes, it has not been he could still in the future, that's right, that's right. He just never, that's basically, the resignation, decided to say, and though I had been